Welcome to the Real Life Podcast with your hosts, leadership and personal growth author and speaker John C. Donahue and licensed psychotherapist Lou Carfisi. The Real Life Podcast is your weekly dose of motivation, encouragement, and direction to help you live your life at the highest level.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Real Life Podcast. My name is John. Joining me, as always, is best friend. He's licensed psychotherapist Lou Carfisi. He comes to us from lifecarecounseling.net. How are you doing this evening, Lou?
I'm doing just fine, sir. Good
Excellent.
to see you.
Good to see you, as always. I come from johncdonahue.com. Together, we are the Real Life Podcast. We come together every Monday night live, if technology is permitting, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, if technology is permitting. And we like to record our podcast. And if you're listening to a show at some other time, please, you're invited. Come join us at facebook.com/reallifepodcast. And you can join in. We do a live chat while we're recording. You're always welcome to come to the reallifepodcast.com website. There you'll find articles and other podcasts that we put out there. And we would love to know what you think about what we're putting out there. If you have questions, you can always find us at questions@reallifepodcast.com. And with that, I think it's good to just go ahead and get into it. Anything you want to throw in there, my friend? You good?
No, I'm good, man. Ready for you.
I don't want to just, launch and just, leave you hanging there.
Nope.
So I wanted to talk about this concept of dreaming and achieving. And as you may or may not know, I'm a life coach. So part of what I do is to help people take their dreams, take their ideas and thoughts, and try to help them achieve it. I help people achieve their goals. I try to help people take the next step so that they can live their lives at the highest level. And this thing about dreaming and achieving has been coming up more and more lately, especially this last weekend. And I'll kind of fill you in on some of the details in a bit. But before we do that, Lou, I'd like to play a little word association. Can we do that? Is that okay if we do that?
Sounds like fun.
This is probably a role reversal for you doing a word association with a psychotherapist. But I want to ask you a question. What comes to your mind when you hear someone is described as a dreamer? What does that mean to you?
That they're a dreamer? Well,
yeah.
It just means to me that they're not a doer. Right.
That's great. Any other characteristics of a dreamer when you think of someone being like Steve? Steve is a dreamer. What does that mean to you? I mean, he's not a doer. What else comes up to mind?
Well, it could be a positive thing as well. It could be that someone is visionary.
Correct.
They have a way of encompassing everything and seeing everything and thinking of the future.
Right.
A creative endeavor.
Right. And I think we have Steve Jobs to thank for that, especially when he launched the Apple Macintosh. And, this one's for the dreamers. That was the first phrase that came out. I think he really did a great job of rebranding that term. But usually when someone's called a dreamer, it's not always positive. There's sometimes some negative connotation. They have their head in the clouds. They daydream all day. They're sometimes unfocused. When you brand someone a dreamer, it's not always negative, but it's not always positive. So that's the first one, a dreamer. What do you think of when someone says, well, that person is an achiever?
Type A personality.
Now, what does that mean for someone who doesn't know what that means? What does type A mean?
Well, they take charge. They're in charge, and they're going to grab the reins, and they're going to just do their thing. And you either follow or get left behind.
That's right. Lead, follow, or get out of the way, right?
That's right. Well, that's it.
Usually when you think of an achiever, you think of someone who gets things done, a hard worker, someone who is diligent about the business. And like you said, a type A person comes to mind. And when you think of the word, you've already said it today, when you think of the word visionary, who are some names that come to mind when I say the word visionary?
Walt Disney. You mentioned you mentioned Steve Jobs. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them working at Google. There's a lot of them working in some of the huge companies, and they're everywhere.
Right.
They really
Right.
are.
You come up with names like Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, George Lucas. I'm currently listening to his biography right now on audible.com. And it's amazing what he went through just to get the movies off the ground that he's done. Bill Gates is another person. We tend to think of people who revolutionized an industry or maybe revolutionized something in the world. I mean, just world shakers. Those are revolutionaries. But I think that they've achieved so many amazing, audacious dreams. They've transcended from being a dreamer to an achiever, and they've gone to even another level of being called a visionary. And visionaries are people that we oftentimes look up to and respect. And so I'm not trying to get people to go from dreamer to visionary. I just want to get people from dreamer to achiever. So what I like to do is unpack what separates those two things. What separates a dreamer from an achiever, and how more of us could make that giant leap. Because for some people, it really is. It's a giant leap of faith. It's sometimes almost like trying to jump across the Grand Canyon. And I think if we really put our minds to it and really unpack this idea, it's really much more attainable than people think. Does that sound fair? Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
All right.
Just as long as you get us to where we want to go.
That's right, buddy. That's my deal. All right. So before I really dig into that, I want to give you a little bit of backstory on something that happened to me this weekend, and it really brought this to light. I got this nugget from I was at a conference, and it was the conference of people who are pretty much the sales force for this company, and it was supposed to be more of a leadership summit, and it wound up being more of a smattering of leadership and really more of a product and sales training, which can be a little depressing. And I wasn't there in a speaking role. I was actually more of a support role. But it was interesting. It was a room full of people who had big dreams. These are people that wanted to get to be a part of this company and have these amazing lives. They want to do incredible things, be top in sales, and then get all these awards. And if you got certain peak awards, you would win these crazy prizes like trips to China. It was amazing. It was incredible. But there was a whole lot of people in the room that I would classify as dreamers, or, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but wannabes. They wanted to be at the next level. They really wanted to be tops in sales. And there were very few people who were in the room that were really true success stories, really the achievers. And they stood out. Unfortunately, they stood out like a sore thumb. And when you're around that, you really start seeing how the structure of that company was designed. And one of the things they did was it was constant reinforcement. This is the end goal. This is where you want to go. And there was a little bit of an emphasis on leadership and a lot of personal development and accountability. And all these were great. But it was that constant carrot. That was what a lot of it was. And I don't mean to speak ill of it. I had a great time and I learned a lot, but it was really a stark contrast. The education was product and sales, and it wasn't necessarily the personal development that I would think that you would need to go from being a dreamer to an achiever. There was a lot of enthusiasm at the event, but there wasn't a ton of follow through. There's people that have been in this company for years and they weren't producing like they really wanted to. And I think it's because they were stuck in that dreamer mode. And when someone is stuck for so long, Lou, from your perspective, what happens mentally to people who were stuck?
What happens to them when they're stuck? Well, if they're stuck because they lack confidence, which is a lot of times the case, then it's something a little bit more serious. They have to inspect their goals. When it's somebody who's stuck because they don't see the way out, that's when you really need someone to lead you out, show you the directions.
Right.
People like that sometimes in a negative way are not self-starters. They need step-by-step. And
Right.
that distinguishes those people from the people who actually get things done.
Right. And some of the things that would help people be self-starters can be learned. You can learn some of these behaviors. Some of it's just ingrained. And I think the people who are more the type A tend to be, especially when you're in sales, tend to be a little bit more successful than people who are more like not type A. Being a salesperson is a very difficult job. I have to do a little bit of self-promotion. I have to do a little bit of sales for what I do because I have to market me. And sometimes it's difficult. I don't like making cold calls, but I've learned behaviors that help me so that I can self-start faster. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think part of what was so good for me was the big nugget that I got out of this event, and I saw it wash over the people because it was something that I've heard before. John Maxwell is the first person that I heard say this, but it really hit home because to be successful in whatever you want, if you want to be in an amazing relationship, if you want to have a great job, if you want to have an amazing career, if you want to start a business, if you want to write a book, if you want to start a blog, if you want to, start a nonprofit, anything that you want to do and do well and achieve success at, you have to ask yourself really two questions. And the first question is, what is it that you want? You have to be very specific. What is it that you want? You can't namby-pamby around, I want to be successful and I want to start a company. You really have to stop and process through what is it that you really, really want? I want to start a company that's going to help millions of people, and I'm going to develop this product and I'm going to sell it to them. Okay, great. That's a great dream. I have this dream of being in this wonderful relationship where, there's good times and there's bad times. We work through the bad times. We get to be more loving, caring relationship. That's great. That's a great dream. Let's start working on achieving it. What is it that you specifically want? And then once you sort that out, you really need to start asking yourself, what are you willing to do to get it? And I think that's the piece that catches people, because it's a great thing to dream, but sometimes people don't count the cost of what those dreams are going to entail. And, I talked about this earlier. I asked the question about what separates dreamers from achievers. And it sounds really simple, but it can also be very difficult, because to stop dreaming and achieving, you have to cross the line of doing something. And that stops a lot of people at the doorstep, because we love dreams. Dreaming is easy. It's something that we all do. We all daydream. We all have thoughts. We all have, these pie in the sky ideas. But, when you really want to break it down, doing something great, starting a business, starting a company, being in a great relationship, there's a hefty price tag to that. And when you're trying to achieve any level of success, you have to factor these things in. It's going to require time. You're not going to be able to watch TV for hours and hours in a day. You're going to have to stop playing video games for 4 or 5 hours a day. You're not going to have as much free time because you're going to be focused on achieving your goal. A lot of times it's going to require you to step out of your comfort zone. You're not going to be able to sit on your couch and daydream. You're going to have to actually step out and do it. You're going to have to make phone calls. You're going to have to meet people. And when you're pre-wired to be more of an introvert, that can be like asking someone to leap across the Grand Canyon. It's very difficult. Sometimes your dreams are going to be so big, so audacious, so incredible that it's going to cost you a little bit of perceived reputation. Because if you came out one day and said, I'm going to buy the New York Jets, people are going to laugh at you. But Gary Vaynerchuk's been saying that for years. I'm going to buy the New York Jets. And I think one day he will. But that's crazy talk. And people have laughed at him. And that perceptively might cost a little bit of his reputation in his own mind. But he doesn't care, because he wants to achieve greatness. He wants to buy the Jets. That's one of those things that you just have to be able to walk away from it. And you may struggle for years and years and years and years and years to become an overnight success. That's the thing. How many people have you read about or heard about, Lou, that were overnight successes, and then when you actually read about their lives or heard about their lives, it was years and years of work and toil?
Well, there's probably most of them. Most of the people who are in that upper position,
Right.
It might seem to the outside world that they achieved an overnight success. They just happened to just step into it. And some
Right.
people really do, though. Some people are that lucky. But
Sure.
I don't know any.
I don't know it either. I would love to know some people who are like that. But even watching like The Social Network, the story of how Facebook came to be, there were a lot of things that, Zuckerberg had to go through. There's a lot of things that he didn't realize would have to be done. And he made some really horrible decisions along the way. But see, that's the thing. The payoff is so huge. You have to be willing to fail time and time and time again to really achieve the things that you want. To become an achiever, you have to be willing and able to sacrifice failure after failure and then stand right back up. And that's the hard piece. And when you're looking at guys like Jobs, when you're looking at guys like Walt Disney, go do some research on Walt Disney. You may or may not know this. I live like literally 5 miles from Walt Disney World. Read the story of how Walt started a business in Marceline, Missouri, and failed. Started a business in Chicago and failed. Started a business in St. Louis and failed. Started another business in Hollywood, California, and failed. His number one character was successful, and it got bought out from under him, and he failed. And then he created this little itty bitty drawing of a mouse he called Mortimer. And thank God his wife stepped in and said, Walt, I think he probably needs a better name. Why don't you name him something cute like Mickey? And that's how Mickey Mouse came to be. Failure, 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 success. And he wasn't an overnight success, but you would think it because he was still so young. And those are the things that you have to do to go from dreaming to achieving. But you can do it. You can build a business that helps your family for years to come. You can write a book that will entertain and bring joy to millions of people. You can have an amazing relationship. You can create the next website, the next app, the next gadget, the thing that's going to revolutionize an industry or maybe even change the world. You can do it. You can dream the dreams and have and be whatever you want. And you may even be able to transcend from just being a dreamer to an achiever and then become a visionary. I mean, that's fascinating. And I think this weekend, seeing a bunch of people who were struggling, some were stuck, and we got to talk to some of those people and tried to get them unstuck. And then we got the opportunity to see people who were stuck for years and then decided to really sacrifice and buckle down, and they became achievers, and they kept achieving and it kept achieving, and they fail and they achieve more. And then there are some people in the room that transcended that and became visionaries. And those are the people's stories that were pretty fascinating. So that's the secret. What do you want? And then what are you willing to do to achieve it? That sounds easy, but it's very difficult to do. What's some advice that you would give somebody, Lou, that is struggling in a position where they've tried to create this thing and they keep failing and they don't see the light of day? What's something you, from your end of the world, how would you encourage them?
Focus on your goal. Everything else between you and your goal is static.
Right. And I know that's true because you've told that to me a lot of times, I've got some steps, and I'm a procedural guy. I love steps. So if you don't mind, I'd like to share 8 simple steps, and they're very simple to write. It's very simple to remember, but sometimes they're very difficult to do. So I'd like to share those 8 steps with you. The first thing is to find a dream. As crazy as that sounds, some people need to find a dream that's their own. What is the one thing that you could pour the next several years of your life into that is worthy of your time, your talent, your resources, and the sacrifice of the things that you find comfort in? What's that dream? The second thing is do some research. Start figuring out what it's going to cost you to succeed. Start developing relationships. Those are the things that you're going to really rely on: the relationships, the research, the data that you pull together. The thing that differentiates the people who are just dreamers and achievers is their ability to take a concept and put flesh on it. And this is a stage where you start figuring out how to do that, how to take space and time and crush it together and make this thing a reality. Dreams to reality, it's a lot of work. And this is the research phase where you can find out the beginning stages of what you need to do. Number 3, and this is the big thing. This is what you were talking about, Lou. Focus. You have to decide that you are in 100%. If you're not all in 100%, you're wasting your time, because there's going to be times when it's very dark and you feel like you're alone, especially if you're an entrepreneur. And I'm not trying to paint it in a negative picture, but I'm trying to be a realistic. If you're trying to do something like start a business, it can be very, very trying. It can be very, very lonely. You're building a practice. It's a little different, but it's still starting a business. And there's been times for you. Have there been times where you felt like you're kind of on your own?
A lot of times I feel like I'm on my own because I'm there by myself. It's my business.
Right.
It has its good and it's not so good.
Right. And that's just reality. Every marriage has ups and downs, and every business has its ups and downs. You have to be able to weather the storm, and you have to be all in. Great marriages work because both partners are in 100%, no matter what comes. Great businesses succeed because the business owners and the leadership are all in 100%. Now that's you. You might have to work with your family and let them know what's coming. Don't just like, hey, I'm going to go do this, because that could cause some friction. And we've had some podcasts about that. So go listen to those before you start going crazy. The 4th thing, I would encourage you to do something that helps you to remember why you do you're doing what you do. Simon Sinek talks about finding your why. And once you have that dream and you go through some of the research and you decide that you're going to be all in, you really need to find your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Put a vision board together. Write a newspaper article that talks about this business that you created in the future tense. Go flash forward 5 or 10 years and write an article about how you started this company, or how you met this person and got married, or whatever it is that your dream is, and put that somewhere where you can refer to it often, because when those times come where you feel alone, when it's kind of dark, you can refer back to it and remember what your why is, and that's hugely important. The 5th thing I would do is to put the work in every day. I'm not saying that you have to work 365 days a week, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. I get it right. But you do have to put the work in. It's not something you're going to be able to hack at for a couple hours a day and expect you to be successful. No matter what they say on TV, no matter what they say on the internet, if you want a successful whatever it is that you want, you're going to have to put a lot of work into it. Be patient. That's the next thing. We've talked about overnight successes are very rare. You have to put a lot of work in. It's slow, but if you're doing all the things that we're talking about, you'll be putting flesh to your dream. You'll be making your dream a reality, and it will come. Number 7, hopefully, if it all goes well, you'll succeed. But be prepared for failures along the way. Thomas Edison was working on a light bulb, and he had thousands of failures before he discovered the one that we know and love today. And then the last thing is to reap the rewards of your success. If everything goes well and whatever it is that you've dreamed about comes to fruition, becomes a reality, then you can bask in the afterglow of awesome success, hopefully. Or, you start all over again and build whatever dream that you have in your head. But remember that you're never too old to find a dream, and you're never too old to start working on whatever it is that you want to achieve. And that's the important thing. Make sure that you're not staying in the dreamer phase, that you're working towards becoming an achiever. And I would even encourage you, don't just try to achieve it, try to become a visionary. Put all the work in and just to be as awesome as you can be. Fair enough?
Sounds like a plan.
Anything you want to throw in there, my friend?
No, I mean, you said it all. You gave them 8 steps to go from no to go. It's very good.
Right.
That's why you're a leadership guy.
That's the thing. And if there is something that I can do for you, I would love to talk to you. You can always find me at questions@reallifepodcast.com. You can find Lou if you have some struggles, you feel like you're stuck and you need to talk to someone. like Lou, he's always there to help you at questions at reallifepodcast.com. You can leave us a comment on Facebook, facebook.com/reallifepodcast. And we're here to help. We want to help you take the next step so that you can live your life at the next level. So I feel like I've taken all the time, and I didn't really mean to, but I'm passionate about this. So thank you, Lou, for
it's your thing, man.
Yeah, so it is. So thanks for your insight. Thanks for letting me play. Thanks for doing the role reversal and letting me hit you up with the word association. And guys, if there's anything that we want to remind you to do, make sure that you look for the real help and real hope here at the Real Life Podcast. And we will see you next week. Do you know what you're talking about next week, buddy?
Not yet.
All right.
I don't know what I'm talking about next week 100%. So
whatever it is, it's going to be phenomenal. I guarantee.
Yes.
It's going to be good. So thanks a lot for watching live. If you're here live, thanks a lot for listening or watching, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Real Life Podcast. Find out more information and sign up for the Real Life Podcast newsletter at reallifepodcast.com. You can also learn more about our hosts, Lou Carfisi at lifecarecounseling.net and John Donahue at johncdonahue.com. And remember, live your life to the fullest. And as always, we want to encourage you to choose to be awesome, because when you choose to be awesome, you will be. Have a great week, everyone.